We've got today two speakers that'll be joining us simultaneously. Sorry, and the first is Sven Denecken. He's the Senior Vice President and COO S/4HANA and Head of Product Success. In his role, next to the COO function, which is implementing business operations to developing the organization and its people, controlling, and communications, Sven is assessing customer and market requirements and supporting SAP's S/4HANA strategy. Via co-innovation projects, he discovers key trends and best practices in application of new technologies and assures the evolution of the product via SAP Activate and respective product configuration content. Sven's many years of experience working with customers and partners, together with an extensive network that includes the SAP field organization and industry analysts, enable the SAP S/4HANA development teams to respond quickly to changing markets to ultimately provide solutions that help customers gain a competitive advantage. As a member of SAP's executive leadership and closely cooperating with respective teams, Sven supports the strategy of SAP solutions and its alignment with customers and the ecosystem. Right, so today Sven will share an update on the SAP product strategy and how the right combination of innovations, including automation, intelligence, and industries, drive the S/4HANA product direction and support your journey through the post-COVID environment. Now, Sven is being joined by Jennifer McDonald, who is Director of Deloitte Africa, and she will share Deloitte's experiences of implementing and running SAP S/4HANA Cloud to support their own intelligent enterprise strategy and ERP transformation. A bit more about Jen, though. Jen is, as we said, the Director of Finance Transformation Leader and SAP Alliance Leader. Jen is an experienced finance professional, a chartered accountant with 15 years of experience, the bulk of which has been in leadership roles, including international experience with Deloitte Australia, and 4 years as Deloitte Africa Chief Financial Officer responsible for the strategic and operational leadership over the Africa finance function. Jen led the award-winning Moja program for Deloitte Africa, driving the Deloitte Africa digital and finance transformation strategy, including the implementation of a common IT platform across the Africa operations with a cloud-first approach. Jen's unique experience and skill set in finance, strategy, business operations, and technology brings together digital finance and operational transformation for their clients. Jen is a strategic thinker and a solution finder, creative and innovative, and passionate about using technology, innovation, and automation to transform business and leave a lasting impact that matters. On that note, hi to Sven and Jen.
Hey, hello, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Welcome, Jen. I'm going to leave it to the two.
Good. So first of all, thanks for having me. And again, of course, we would be super delighted also to be on site and on stage. But hopefully that format works. And I'm extremely delighted also to have Jen with me. Looking forward to the Q&A also afterwards. Let's dive right into, because of course it is an update to the strategy, but strategies are good if they are stable, but also flexible enough to react to what we see on the marketplace. Now, stepping into that, I thought it would be extremely helpful also to tell the story behind the screens and behind the PowerPoint, and start with a why, because we all need to go back and understand why we are doing what we're doing. And I've been around for a while, and from the first days of S/4HANA specifically, it was always driven by what we saw in the marketplace. And there's a lot of things that are going on, especially in times like these. But it is always go back to the fundamental. What are the business processes? What are the fundamentals that we see in companies happening? And I'm trying that for my job, which is, of course, not only talking to customers and partners and to engineers, but also globally see those trends, as very, very few companies today in the world, and for sure the same is for South Africa and entire Africa, you are interconnected globally. And that's why those trends are important. Trying always to separate them, even if they are together, but talking not only on the IT side of the house, but also from a business side of the house. Nevertheless, we're challenged with the systems when we run them, when you run them, when we design them. And there are a lot of trends that have been around and still will be for the foreseeable future, like, do I run them by my own, or can the vendor do more? Can I go to standardized or the highest degree of standardization, which is software as a service? How do I manage the specifics that I need for my company? How do I integrate in an environment which is actually not only one system, one vendor, one area, but integrate across? And how I constantly change the business processes because they need to adopt. And to what they need to adopt are actually operational, but also strategic topics, like new business models. Models that where you go from classical interaction with your clients towards a mass interaction, a mass building or customization, where serving to a global world, you need to connect to networks, where the end user or your customer's customer defines how your processes look like. And that means that if we now bring that down to challenges, a lot of people talk about the digital economy. So do we. We need to look at business model transformations every day. We need to look into what does that mean for the ability and flexibility also to redesign those processes, while we never should forget software and business process is one, there's also the people aspect. We need to look at the consequences to some of our core processes. Let me give you an example. The lot size of one, where the number of transactions and the value of the transaction actually go in different directions, which calls for hyper automation of commodity processes. And then these are topics which, of course, day in and day out, when we look at product strategy, need to be actually also to taken into account. What does that mean at IT? We will see that, and I want to make that on a very concrete examples, and actually also Jen will talk about that, because standardization is one part of the coin, and it's well done if I understand my processes, if I understand what best practices are and changes. On the other side, we can't standardize everything. There needs to be this last mile, there needs to be the flexibility, and that's what I'm going to talk about as well. So let's dive right into the what, because the what at the end defines your appetite, defines also the steps you take. And I personally do believe we need to all together, like us as SAP, you as clients and the partners, do a proper assessment where you're standing today, because there is no like one size fits all. And extremely important if we talk about software as a service, which again is the highest degree of standardization, we need to pick up where you are currently. And that move, that rise towards the highest degree of standardization means a proper analysis where you are today. That said, we of course have a product strategy, and it is evolving, as I said, but has some fundamentals. What are the fundamentals is that integration of a suite is important, as long as it doesn't pack you into not moving part. You customize till the depths that you can't move anymore and innovate. You need to start to look at certain parts, historically called modules. Now, of course, those are domains that we're looking into and how to bring that together. I think that what you see in the middle is now, meanwhile, also augmented what we call the industry cloud strategy, that based on that business technology platform we are relying on, you can build industry specifics. But also there is a change in the marketplace, and it's not only our product strategy responding to it, you're doing it yourself. You maybe historically say, I'm in industry X, but suddenly you discover, well, I'm producing, but I'm a retailer as well. I need to connect to my end user. I want a sensor, get feedback, experience of the user of my customer to define a better service. I want to maybe sell via outcome than via an SKU of a product. And those industry-specific developments, while they cater to a certain problem to solve, need to be as modular as possible, because you want to tap into those. That means integration technology-wise, semantical integrity always matters, but also the flexibility to consume. All of that on a very open and flexible platform, including infrastructure as a service, where we don't think you should be boxed into one, specifically also if you act with or even on a global scale. The last point I want to mention, and we of course are more than happy that's meanwhile a pre-integration happening, is to business networks. we all live in networks. We all need and saw the fragility of supply chains. We saw the fragility in pandemic times about what was more important than others. Next to cash, it was, of course, the availability, the supply. And it goes further, like, because you act in business networks always. Now the question is, they're getting bigger, they're getting more complex, and they need maybe also to be steered. And that's why, of course, also it needs to be part of our intelligent enterprise strategy to pre-connect to business networks. The last part I want to mention, because that, of course, that's fixed, is that we changed the core towards S4, and that core will constantly evolve. It will evolve from a technology perspective, but also from a business process perspective. Why? I happen to believe that the impact of operative data, being in your financial system, in your logistical system, in your HR system, have a growing impact how your business process look like. That augmented with experience data, like how does an end user uses that system, leverage the data, how does it help his job? How does experience data of you producing something influence the way how you plan? Those are very important ingredients. And there's one more to come, which is actually the impact. We saw that in Industry 4.0 evolutions, that censoring data out there were getting more and more important, by the way, inside the corporation as well as outside. That does also mean we need to constantly look at business processes, and I differentiate them in two. One is the commodity processes, where best practice, standardization, and the automation, actually a business process shrinking or even going away, is the ultimate goal. And it is the differentiating processes where you reimagine your business models, where you tailor them, build on actually the business technology platform, and where some of the differentiation of innovation can happen first before you apply it to all your others. And that is, of course, where also comes the industry-specific modules, where you want to pick and choose, and suddenly, even if you are a producer, make a billing including services and actually maybe charge by outcome. Those are differentiating processes where in a hardwired, hyper-customized process is very, very cumbersome. That's why commoditize what you can and have the ability to differentiate. When we look at that, there's a third dimension. We are very wired about top line, bottom line as companies, and rightfully so, because we feed a lot of our employees via being good in what you do as companies. But there is a third aspect, which is next to top and bottom line, as we call it the green line, that is very not marketing-ish. It is definitely a growing and of growing importance aspect how you need to look at your business and your business processes. Let me make an example. Usually supply chains are mostly optimized if they are well connected also with your financial planning by availability, via cost, via maybe also just in time. More and moreover, we need to look at what the impact of how we produce, what we produce, where we purchase, how we ship to customers, how we even expose the service if you don't ship a physical good. What is the impact to society, to sustainability? That's why we have decided that more than 70% of the worldwide GDP runs through SAP systems. We should be, together with a lot of partners, at the forefront to ingrain that in our solutions. Ingrain means there is a lot of process steps where you can measure. And again, it comes to data. There's a lot of transparency via analytics you can bring, but I think it will go further that you will want to optimize. Back to my example, you optimize your delivery via time, via cost, via sustainability, via CO2, or maybe by all of them. That is where we see that heading, because reimagining those business processes, having them data-driven and automated, I think it is what drives us at SAP, together with our ecosystem and your clients, where we collaborate and cooperate. I mentioned the networks because resources more and more will not come from the inside the gates of your enterprise. It will come from outside, not only the supply, but also the people that help you to manage your company. And that's why people network, asset network, supply chain networks. That's why we created the network of networks, connect once and leverage that ability, which now coming back to S4, of course, is not only a big trend, but a big investment that we see to be future ready there. Let me maybe nevertheless drill down on two more aspects, which usually should be very important if you look at an update to the strategy. Number one, where we're focusing on. And I'll share that link also later. There's interactive roadmaps, which are actually also can tailor to your specific status, where you are, the situation, but also looking to the future. We're investing with the data and semantic integrity equally in classical public cloud solutions as well as in the solutions that you run. Now, I hope that you run them on a hyperscaler or on a service provider of your choice. But it is important that, of course, we also understand not everyone is ready for the public cloud everywhere. But we see more and more that processes like quote to order or actually procure to invoice are commodity processes, hyper automated, and are able to offboard some of that workload into a classical public cloud software as a service. Models, and we will hear that later, like running two tiers, like how you run your headquarters and how you run subsidiaries, are getting more prominent. And that's why important in the public cloud in SaaS, where we come with best practice, a lot of the methodology, by the way, should actually, I think, also be applied in a private cloud setting or an on-prem setting, because standardization helps everyone. So check out those roadmaps, they're important. I brought some examples with me. They don't fit usually on a slide, what we have available. That's why detailed overviews are linked from here. But let me pick two or three just to give you an idea about what I said at the beginning, the why and the what now results into what we're doing in the solution. Now start from the upper left, because usually the CFO is a friend you want to have. And that's why we always see innovation on the finance area. Now, historical wise, we optimized also the integration between value flow and material flow in finance. That's what you know from SAP. Now we started to automate that by leveraging technology, being it process robotic automation, AI, or business processes, much more flexible and structured that automation of finance could be achieved, which resulted in maybe faster information on margin to where decisions are made when you, for example, purchase, plan your production, or make managerial decisions. Ideas that we brought into to also automate finance as a function. But that's not where it stops. I think what we are now working on, or what's available, is self-auditing finance. What does that mean? If I know the data, either internally or externally, if I have a risk reduction approach that everyone should have, then the question is, how can I implement compliance by default? And that means that we can replace a lot of the manual and sample-based testing and getting a self-auditing finance, which of course alerts the expert, of course brings that at the forefront. Not avoiding the auditor, but it's avoiding that your system needs to be actually changed, that your processes are running in the right. So that is an interesting part where we're constantly looking into. Predictive MRP is synchronized planning. Those are two big areas, head of supply chain. If something like, pandemic, the Suez Channel, or Brexit, for example, definitely brought something in the forefront, is that planning and end-to-end visibility does make sense up to the networks. Procurement. Scheduling and dispatching, subscription business. Those are other examples where we're investing. Subscription business being one super interesting, because you want to see, and you maybe also change the way how you interact with your clients on a subscription basis, which could be even like contracts per outcome. And that actually is very important if you think about a customer lifecycle value, or actually also looking at your cash flow. So just some headlines where then intangible features, functions, modules, solutions, you will see what I said before coming together. Now, all of that needs to be looked in an end-to-end process. And there might be several solutions from SAP or even other solutions where we integrate. But the qualities that you see underneath, where I would like you to focus on, need to be always improved, but in the forefront of the design when we think about end-to-end processes or applications in industry or in classical domains going forward. User experience, and I not only mean the UI, how you can actually connect with managing the work, the flow of work, how do good blueprints look like, and how far away you are from, like with business process information and intelligence that you can apply. Align domain models inside the SAP solutions for sure, but also with other solutions. And even if it sounds like housekeeping, consistent security, identity management, the life cycle of the solutions. And last but not least, super important, embedded analytics at the point where your users have the interaction with the system, so this data speaks to them. Let me finish and then I'll hand over to Jen on two more things, which is what we learned in the last years, how to get there. First of all, specifically in the SaaS world, there is a methodology which comes within, and you can apply that no matter if you're private cloud, on-prem, or public cloud. That is the Activate methodology. So look at what that gives. It has proven that you can reduce the efforts, and you can, of course, afterwards then look for that flexibility on top, which means we've analyzed no customer is the same. And by the way, the whole reason about RISE with SAP is providing one hand to shake, but we understand that customers have different starting points, different time frames, as it is not only an IT question, it's also a business process question, and of course, a re-engineering question. A lot of tools in there where you should look at. Last but not least, that's the final one here, extensibility. We should never, ever punish someone for standardization to say, nope, one size fits all. There needs to be that last mile, that ability in-app or side-by-side with SAP, yourself, or with partners to extend the solution, so the so-called last mile. And that's why the strategy around extensibility, right away here in Invite, connect with us. We'll show you where we are going, because that's an ingrained, very important part, also at the end to avoid modification. Last but not least, I mentioned, and this will be the handover then to Jen, there is a concept out there which is of growing importance and, of course, on delight of customers, which we call two-tier ERP or hybrid scenarios, where maybe in corporate world, you are lucky to have the experts, you have the expertise and the solutions which you can manage by yourself. Please, hopefully on infrastructure systems. But there are some central services which are ready for even the next degree to standardization. We know that from shared services, especially finance, procurement. And you, of course, have also a supply chain of ecosystems. And we have very good examples while we adhere to what you see on the right side of the slide. One business blueprint, one coherent data model, homogeneous resource planning across global operations, a hub and spoke model have been very favored. You see some of the customers. And I think the best person to talk about exactly that example would be Jen. Jen, over to you.
Thanks, Sven. Great to be here, everybody. I think as I was already introduced, Jen McDonald. And I guess, one of the biggest reasons that I'm here today is to really share with you the journey that Deloitte Africa took in their own business transformation. Now, I was the CFO during that period and led the business transformation. So really bring a business aspect to it. Have since transitioned into supporting customers in their own transformational journeys. So bring a little bit of both worlds to this discussion. So hopefully we'll be able to share some insight with you today and lessons learned and that you can take forward on your own journeys. So. Let me just, in order to kind of, start, our program was called Moja, which I'll explain what means in a little bit. And, in order to explain what we did, it's quite important to understand some context or background around our member firm. So Deloitte Africa is actually a combination of entities that historically operated completely independently as separate countries across the African continent. And what happened in 2017 is we underwent a member firm combination, or a merger, where all these countries came together and ultimately became fully financially integrated from 2018. But what happened, and because of the legacy operations being separate, we were faced with what I call the post-combination challenge. Now, the post-combination challenge essentially, arose in a couple of places, but largely was driven by the legacy infrastructure, systems, operating models, and that truly, made it very difficult for us, despite merging together as one member firm, actually operating as one member firm across these 17 countries that we serviced, our clients. So we had disparate legacy systems that meant non-standardized business processes and also non-integrated business processes when we look, end to end, say from CRM through to ERP, etc. And, from a finance point of view and from a leadership point of view, that brought many challenges. Firstly, we had very poor data quality. We had multiple versions of the truth across all these various systems. We had limited centralization opportunities post the combination. We wanted to leverage off of coming together and centralize certain functions, etc., which was quite tough given the disparate landscape. Also, central governance and oversight was challenging. Business was used to operating in their own ways, shapes, and forms. And there was also a limited ability to digitally transform our business on these outdated IT platforms. And for finance, it also meant very slow manual workarounds, manual consolidations, and a very extended close period, which I think took us about 15 days when we first started out on this journey. So we needed to do something. We needed to change. We needed to have a bold play. So we looked into our global strategy. Deloitte is a global organization. And at that point in time, our global firm was also on its journey to S4. And most of our big member firms were going for S4HANA on-premise on a program called Swift. Unfortunately, at that stage, we were only on the roadmap for Swift for 2024, and we couldn't wait 7 years for a new solution. So we started sort of looking at synergies and what we could do to sort of close that gap. And that's when we leaned into, what was happening in the cloud space. And so our own Africa strategy was firstly to lay down this common platform for our Africa member firm and to support this Africa integration. We did adopt a cloud-first strategy, and we selected S4HANA Public Cloud as a viable option for our core ERP. But not only public cloud, and I'll get to kind of what was all in the program, we also selected a suite of other solutions, cloud solutions from SAP that supported the end-to-end business processes as part of that program. And some of them are listed on the screen, and I will cover them a bit later as well. So before I get into the actual journey, I think it's important, when you start out a business transformation journey of this nature, to understand, from an executive point of view, what are those strategic choices and expected executive benefits, out of some of those choices that you're making, heading on this type of a journey. And so I've got a couple that I'm going to bring up. I mean, the first one was we needed a common platform. That was the burning platform for us to go on this journey. And we wanted that integration and standardization, and ultimately that the benefit that would give us would be, governance control, over the business across the continent. The next thing or strategic choice that we made was that cloud-first strategy. And with it being public cloud, we went on a co-innovation journey with SAP to actually co-innovate the solution. It was the professional services public cloud solution in S4. And, that ultimately accelerated our digital transformation journey. We have a digital inside strategy and bold play within our organization, and we wanted also continuous digital innovation into the future. The next one was business optimization. I've spoken around, we wanted to centralize certain of our, services that we deliver, in the organization, and create some shared services hubs, especially in finance. And, ultimately, this would give us the platform to do that. And we also wanted to be a very, very important strategic choice was we wanted to be market leading. Not only did we do this for ourselves, but we did this for ourselves first. We were one of the first global organizations to implement the suite of solutions that we selected in the public cloud, and thereby placed us in a market leading place to take this ultimately to our customers, which we are doing now. So what we did was we launched a program called Moja, and I mentioned the word Moja in the beginning, and it's quite important to understand that the word Moja actually means one in Swahili, one of our local African tongues. And it just speaks volumes in terms of what we were trying to do in terms of bringing all these things together and operate as one African business across the continent. It's important to know that it was a business-led transformation program. I'm not going to go into the governance structures, but they were key, I believe, to the success of our program, from a steering level right through down to the implementation team. And we also worked very closely with SAP. So in fact, Sven was our executive sponsor on this program. And with a public cloud solution, it's quite important that that link is made and that you take the journey together. I'm going to show you a short video. It's 2 minutes, but it actually probably better describes in my words kind of what was all encompassed in the program, because it was broader than just S4. And so I will share that with you for the next 2 minutes. I hope you can hear the sound.
Our purpose as a firm is clear: to make an impact that matters as we aspire to be the undisputed professional services leader in Africa. Our people across Africa power us towards this goal. But together as one, with a little extra superpower, we will go beyond. Deloitte Africa, as one Moja-powered organization, will be world-class. Moja is our strategic bold play that will see the implementation of a common IT platform across Deloitte Africa, enabling end-to-end integrated business processes. This digitally advanced platform leverages robotics, artificial intelligence, and cloud technology that will empower Deloitte Africa to be a leader through the technology revolution. It will place superpower in our grasp to give us super insight and intelligence into our clients. Super efficiency, optimizing our time, resources, and employee experience. And superpower for our business leaders through deep analytical insights and foresights, all at super speed. 8 core initiatives will release this Moja power through unlocking the value of our master data as the golden thread connecting our systems and processes. One CRM system implemented across Africa, standardizing opportunity management and client acceptance processes. Introducing a standardized pricing tool, empowering all regions and service lines to achieve pricing excellence, and connecting CRM to execution and delivery. An integrated resource management system, implementing the latest SAP S4 HANA cloud technology as our core ERP solution, managing core finance, procurement, HR, and project services delivery, bringing a world-class digitized analytics and reporting platform, transforming our Africa finance organization to better support business in the new technology landscape. Future Moja initiatives as we continue to standardize, digitize, and automate our remaining legacy systems. Moja will connect all systems and processes together as one. Moja, let's go beyond.
So as you can see, the theme was around bringing superpower to our business, to our Africa business. And, looking back in the rearview mirror, we've definitely come a long way to do that. So the video did cover, some of what was included in the program, but maybe I could spend a couple of seconds just elaborating a little bit. So, we did put S4 HANA Cloud down. We put down SAP Success Factors to manage our HR function. We put down Concur Expense, also cloud solution. We also put in SAP solution extension called Blackline to manage our closing financial process. From an enterprise analytics and reporting point of view, we actually laid down an analytics data warehouse in BW for HANA, which is hosted in the private cloud. And on top of that, our BI, visualization or intelligence layer was done in the SAP Analytics Cloud. SAP Analytics Cloud also supports our budgeting and forecasting process. And then the other streams, which were related but not system directly, was a master data thread through the entire program. We did put in Africa CRM system, and the other stream in the program was a finance transformation, where we actually took the entire finance organization across the continent and centralized it into 6 operational cores, including a shared services for our Africa finance, which talked to those centralization opportunities that I spoke to at the beginning. In terms of a system architecture point of view, you'll see what's in the SAP Cloud Core there. We kept our core clean, stuck to the standard processes out of the SAP solution for professional services, and you can see in there as well is our SAP Concur, SuccessFactors, and Blackline. We then used the business technology platform, SAP Cloud Platform, to support our integration into our other applications and systems that we were running that were outside of the core. We also then put down, as I said, that SAP BW for HANA layer hosted in the private cloud on AWS, which it basically extracts the data from all the solutions, both the core and the other solutions, into that warehouse in order to visualize and produce the data and management reports for our leadership and in the SAP Analytics Cloud. So yeah, so quite a journey, and you can see the whole architecture over there. So one of the few things that I just wanted to quickly cover is a public cloud solution, and it's quite interesting because I don't think everybody understands what public cloud means. So there's a couple of things that I want to share. I mean, it is a software as a service model, and I think the first point is that there is a best practice template. We use the best practice template for professional services, and we adopted those standard processes, and we were quite strict around changing our legacy business processes to adopting the standard, and you have to do that as far as possible. I think we had a 97% match in order to really get the value and the benefit out of that best practice template in the cloud. We had one of the other advantages of going public cloud is the speed of innovation. So there's much quicker innovation cycles than on-premise. Some of you might be aware that there are quarterly releases of new functionality. So, I mean, since we've been live, we've probably been through about 10 innovation cycles or quarterly releases where we get the upgrades and the new functionalities. And that brings with it, the latest developments, AI, robotics, machine learning. And I like to compare it to your iPhone. When you get your latest iOS update, whether you like it or not, you're going to get that new functionality, and it really helps an organization keep pace, with the speed of innovation in the age that we're living in today. The next point is the pricing and cost. We, shifted from a hardware license and maintenance cost to a subscription basis, pay as you use. So, our cost, I think, if you look across the entire landscape, our business case spoke for itself, and we received much more for less than what we were paying in our old legacy landscape. And the last point, and I think Sven, spoke about it as well, that we kept our core clean, but there are options for extensibility, and where we needed to innovate, for the industry specifically, there was about, 3% innovation that we did using the extensibility piece. In terms of our timeline, our journey started in July 2017, and we actually went live in July 2019. Now, it was a 2-year journey, but I will say that when we started this journey, I think we were one of the first to go on the journey, and it wasn't just S4 Cloud. There were a whole lot of other things that were in the mix as well. And we spent probably about the first 12 months co-innovating the solution with SAP. So it probably wouldn't take that long if we had to do it again. But yeah, and then that was we went live in Southern Africa in July 2019, and then in October, only 3 months later, we went live with the rest of our countries in East and West Africa. And then today, I mean, a business transformation is a continuous journey, and we are currently busy with our optimization program around resource management, some reporting, some project services, and some robotics. So, yeah, I mean, there are some successes and some challenges in the journey. I think no journey is without its challenges, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of the key things I believe were the program governance, the co-innovation that we did with SAP, the fact that our program was inclusive program with integration, and it was, there was a big digital focus on, automating many of our processes, including the finance processes. And some of the key learnings were, really, don't forget change management, the learning curve when you're adopting your different standard processes, master data, and our reporting. Just to a point, I mean, I think we did win a Global Innovation Award for the journey that we took, the SAP Global Innovation Award in the Adoption Superhero category for 2020, and we're featured in the Wall Street Journal and a number of other platforms for, I guess, the trailblazing, journey that we've taken and being the first to actually adopt that suite of cloud solutions. I guess the real question is, are we an intelligent enterprise at the end of the day? And I'll quote a quote from our Chief Operating Officer, Mike Jarvis. And essentially, we believe that the successful co-innovation, of the solution of an intelligent enterprise with SAP for Deloitte Africa, we believe solidifies our position as the undisputed leader in helping our clients succeed in the markets where they compete. And there's a number of things that, we were able to achieve, or successes, looking back in the rearview mirror. So firstly, the successful integration of operating and servicing 17 countries with standardized and optimized processes. That was a key goal in the beginning and one that we managed to achieve. We have advanced ongoing digital transformation and unification, into that single Deloitte Africa member firm, and our digital journey has just been totally accelerated. There's so many more, automated processes and user interfaces, which brings me to my next point, around the improved user experience, new functionality, mobility. We transitioned our users from manual to digital processes. As an example, on Concur, I mean, I clearly remember walking into our offices when we still went to offices and dropping my expense claim in the expense claim box so that somebody could audit my manual receipts. I mean, gone are those days. Now, take a photo, of your receipts. It automatically, generates the expense claim, and it's a much slicker, quicker process for our users. They do timesheets on the go, on their mobiles, and from a finance point of view, there's a lot more of the processes that are automated. Which brings me to the next point around, we successfully managed to redesign that Africa finance service delivery model and centralize that finance function. I mean, we had so many of the processes that were done on a disaggregated and decentralized basis before we went on this journey. And we now have many of those that are brought to the center. Just as an example, simple examples, provision of doubtful debts is all centralized and done centrally. Cost allocation processes that used to take us 2 days manually through journals over month end are now scheduled and automated and take a couple of hours with very little human intervention. And that has ultimately meant that we were able to reduce our closing period from a finance point of view down from that original, which I said started at 15 days, down to 6 days where we can report to the executive. So yeah, much quicker period closure. We also have a data-rich, Africa-wide reporting system that boosts that strategic decision-making. I think, I was the CFO still through the first year end post our go live. And I mean, the amount of information that we had that we just previously were not able to tap into was phenomenal, and was definitely an output of one of the strategic goals that we set up front. We were able to deliver one set of consolidated results for the Africa firm with very limited manual intervention. And, previously that was very difficult. And going into COVID, we just went live in the July before COVID hit, in the October with our East and West African countries. And we actually managed to improve our working capital and cash management with a decrease in days sales outstanding, which was absolutely critical to, the cash flow position, going into that period. And then I've already mentioned we eliminated many of the costs related to our legacy systems, moving to that software as a service model. So the question is, what's next for Deloitte Africa? As I said, we've got that optimization program running. We're also looking at a number of industry cloud solutions to improve, some areas of our business, and innovating, into that industry cloud. We have an ongoing, partnership with SAP. We adopting all the new innovation that comes out every quarter, and then very importantly, we supporting our client transformations, who are heading on a similar journey. So that's me. I think that, sort of having said that, Sven, I guess we were on this journey together.
Definitely we were. Absolutely, and thanks. Amazing information. Can't wait to get a hold on those slides. So maybe let's nevertheless reiterate on some of the fundamentals of what I heard, and just to prove that I heard it right. So Jen, when given all the journey that we are together, but you also made in your company the experience with S/4HANA Cloud, what would be your, let's say, top 3 do's and don'ts when a company, and we have many now out there listening to us, what would be the do's and don'ts for planning and executing such a transformation project?
Yep, there are definitely some good learnings that we got out of this trailblazing journey, absolutely. And I think it really goes back to some of the successes and challenges that I put up on that one slide. And maybe if I can say 3, key do's. Do have strong program governance and a program that's business led from the top. I think that's really important for a successful business transformation program, and important to help counter the change management challenges that you might have at the back end. I think the other do is, work obviously closely with SAP, with your service provider. In public cloud specifically, there was the co-innovation element, which was important to our success. And having the right partner, to kind of walk that journey with you is really, really important. And then another do, especially if you, wanting to go on a similar journey, is make sure that you stick to that standard and adopt standard wherever possible. It's just going to set you up or set that foundation for innovation in the future, and innovate, only where you have to. So those are top 3 do's. I didn't mention don'ts. Okay, so the don'ts are just don't forget a few things. Okay, so don't forget change management, don't forget your data, and don't forget your reporting.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Sven, from my side, I guess, especially with Deloitte, I mean, you would have seen up front, we definitely have a 2-tier landscape, I guess, with, globally some of our organization on-prem, and then, us on the journey in the cloud. Are you seeing a lot more of that in the market in terms of the 2-tier deployment model?
That's a great question, and I would like to say the deployment model is for sure, as we also heard from you, not the decisive one. It's a question about degree of standardization, and of course also the availability. But let's make it simple. If you have a headquarter with enough resources, experts, and you want to keep investing into that, even there is a lot of standardization. So 2 tiers, not just classical headquarter subsidiaries, even of workloads. Absolutely, I do see that this is rising again. So this is definitely getting more and more in the market, and that's why we also, and has been a key part of what we went together as Deloitte and SAP as partners. How can you define those business processes? How can you leverage that end to end? How can you balance between manage and control? And that's why I see that as a growing part, specifically as more companies start for the commoditized processes to look for that high degree of standardization. Interestingly enough, and then I recall some of the discussions, is how do you manage people who say, no, I have my way, so you go highway. Then you say, no, this is cloud. This is how we do it. And I would be, of course, more polite, would say, why don't we start exactly with this? Then we can do complex later, assuming we never come to complex. So I think it's a formidable approach that was always out there. Now, software as a service or cloud has just fueled it tremendously also on a global scale. Absolutely. Now, which brings me actually to another question I had in mind. So, as you have a very, very distinct role at Deloitte, and not only thanks you for the project, but also for everything that you also helped us and teach us, have you been able also to take your own lessons as running as a person in your role at Deloitte and learn to support other customers on that journey?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I guess personally, it's one of the reasons why I transitioned out of the CFO role into, the client-facing role, the director role, working with our SAP Alliance and, other organizations and clients to transform their business. So absolutely are walking that journey with, a couple of clients currently. I think globally, not just locally, but globally, our Deloitte practice is really strong, especially in the cloud space. I think we've done multiple cloud transitions and transformations. I think I heard a number that more than double our closest competitor. So yeah, locally we recently did a public cloud deployment with a mining company in Botswana. And I think we were able to execute that and deliver time to value in just 4 months, which also talked to your slide around, different clients on different timelines and different, start points in their journey. And yeah, I think, also with the RISE offering, and Deloitte has brought our sort of boost play on top of that RISE offering, and are working with a number of customers at the moment on their cloud transition and their cloud journeys.
Yeah, I like it, and I love it specifically because you did it. You understand what the challenges are, and you can codify it good enough in the way how you approach others. That's always amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I think we got so much value out of the experience. And I mean, maybe a question for you, Sven, is, other customers, from your perspective, what other value stories, can you share that you've seen out in the market as well?
Yeah. And then again, if I also just specifically look at your continent in Africa, you are, especially also in South Africa, blessed with a high degree of technology compared to many other regions, by the way, in the world, or the rest of Africa. I would say you guys leapfrog towards mobile earlier than many others. And sometimes we tend to forget when we look at that, how those technology advances really help you. What I wanted to say is, we look equally at existing customers, how they want to more and more standardize, so they get the value of getting a function, being it maybe procurement, being it finance, really to a high degree of standardization, faster than anything else. So also finance can serve as a supporter of their business, because they less are focused on getting their things done than to support the business. These are values that we see. Second, 40% of the clients on S/4HANA Cloud are net new. And by the way, as we're a little bit German, we don't even count Deloitte as net new because we had you before as customer. Well, I would argue what we did in South Africa is unprecedented, awesome, and shows that's really a new approach. But 40% really means also new businesses, from startups, from new businesses that also are created by large companies, a site where they want to say, well, we know how we did it in the past and we keep doing that, but this is a new approach, a new platform, a new also engagement with our vendor, where I happen to believe that in a SaaS world, that's the most loyal and trustful combination you can have with the client. Even as an engineer, so I'm sitting here actually in Waldorf, that's not a fake background. A little bit lonely at the moment if you're alone, but a good bandwidth. So that said, if I talk to the engineers, they're so proud because, they code something, you can see if Jen is using it and how Jen is using it. If Jen is not happy using it. So that's a complete different connection. And that value, which doesn't come from feature and functions, that doesn't come from technology itself, that doesn't come from deployment model, that comes from that closeness that we have. And those are the values which sometimes, you said it well, 40% of success of a project is transformation and business transformation,
Yes.
change management. Never forget this. And this is where now with public cloud, you can't get closer. That's for sure.
Absolutely, couldn't agree
That's awesome.
more.
I'm looking a little bit at the time. I hope for the audience this was helpful, enlightening, of course, what Jen also brought to the table. Thank you very much for that. With that, I would love to hand it back to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Sven and Jen. That really was very interesting and so interesting to see both sides of the coin. We have a couple of questions here for you. So let's see how many we can run through before time is up. So Gerard Greiling asked a very interesting question. He says, hi, Jen. Some governments in Africa switch off internet connectivity immediately at times of civil unrest. Like recently in Eswatini, how does this threat feature in your decision to go for a public cloud decision?
That's a really tough question. Wow. So, I mean, if you have a look at our landscape in terms of the spread of our operations across Africa, you can see that we do have, operations in some countries that might have that dynamic. Look, I mean, it is a public cloud solution. It is internet hosted and internet based, so you do require connectivity. I must admit that we are having, some discussions with other clients that have similar issues, maybe not where the government turns off the connectivity, but where they have sites that are kind of in the more rural areas that are not necessarily connected all the time. But I think we need to also, we're helping work with those clients and thinking innovatively around, how we can work around that potentially, having an app that's offline and connects and then uploads, the data, when they can connect. So I think when you're going on this type of journey, you need to assess each situation and each client on its own merit. For Deloitte Africa ourselves, we haven't had that issue when we've had uptime and low connectivity issues, even though we hosted obviously in the public cloud in Germany. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that response. Next up, sorry, the questions are coming in so fast. They're scrolling faster than we can actually ask them. We've got our next questions from Sean van der Merwe. And he says, being a municipal entity, so he works for the city of Joburg. So he says, being a municipal entity that delivers complex services to its customers, he has the following question. He says, we are talking about structured data, yet there's an ocean of unstructured sentiment data on the service provider, for example, social media, etc. Does the AI platform cater for this?
Yeah, maybe I'll take this one. So absolutely. You need to look at unstructured and structured data together. And we do that by a couple of things, if I may quickly allude. So first of all, you can't capture all that unstructured data. You need to analyze it and then store or compute actually the analysis, because you're not going to replicate the internet, for sure not social media, nor you want that. But sensing what your clients are asking is actually equally important for you if you produce that in a complex environment, because you want to know how even your product or your service or the product you deliver towards is seen in the market and react to those trends. And that's why our business technology platform has not only the data lakes for computing mass data if needed, but also those abilities. And AI is an interesting one because specifically if you look at machine learning, this is where it gets interesting, and it goes down to semantics. Like unstructured data can be apples that are oranges. So absolutely, that's what the platform caters for. I just would be very careful to expect miracles out of that at the get-go. This is a constant learning, and then that's why we always need to connect it to a business process. Let me make you an example. If you have a product or a service like Jen had, and you suddenly see outages somewhere, or you see actually some unhappiness of end users, and you can sense that data, that needs to be a trigger at the right point where you actually change your supply, your service, your product. And that connectivity is where the mojo lies with unstructured data. But technology-wise, definitely not a challenge for us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We literally have 3 minutes. I just want to ask the next question. It's from Duke Matabula himself. And he says, as a CFO, Jen, I'm assuming this one's for you. What role, whoops, hold on. They moved the screen on me. As a CFO, what role did you play in convincing the rest of your C-suite that this was the right technological direction and investment to transform your organization?
Thanks for that question, Duke. I guess, I think it's an important point because you do need to get everyone on board that this is the right journey. That buy-in is so critical because although I led the program, it wasn't me that led the change through the organization. We actually had all our COOs and all our execs on the steering and driving this into the business. So their buy-in up front was absolutely critical. I think part of that journey was understanding the business case, around what we were trying to achieve. As I said, we already had a burning platform for change because, the merger and the disparate landscapes just wasn't working for us. So it was an easy convince to, we've got to do something, we've got to move. And, in terms of our options of where we move to, I think understanding the benefits of, adopting the public cloud, understanding kind of where we were going long-term on that journey and understanding, with the execs that we're laying the foundation for the future. We want to build something that allows us to innovate into the future and doesn't, by the time we go live, leave us in a place, that we're already on outdated technology. So, those were some of the data points, around convincing the exec.
Wonderful.
Innocent, can I make a proposal?
Yes, please.
Usually now would be the time that Jen and myself jumping off stage, we would share a coffee and later a beer with the audience. So why don't you send the questions to us if Jen is up for it? Would be happy to answer it because I think those questions from the user group are so important to me, to us, because they help us to understand what we should be up for. Is that an offer?
Perfect. That is wonderful. Thank you so much.